everybody. Welcome back to Kitchen Witchin', coming to you from the ugliest kitchen in America. Slightly fancier ugly kitchen in America. I'm your host, Susie Bianco. Thanks for joining us today. So, we're going to have a little bit of a change on today's show. Turns out, I got a job at the library. I'm officially a librarian now. That's right, I'm cool. So, with my extended work hours, it's been a little bit difficult to find time to film. So, we're going to have a guest for the next couple of episodes. I apologize in advance. I don't know what she's going to do. Oh, I'm going to get deplatformed, aren't I? So anyway, this week she's going to be helping us make apple pie. Oh, she's already here. Alright, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our guest host. Hi, y'all. My name is Kiki Toblerone. It is such a joy to be here today in this horrible kitchen. My God, is this horrible. Ugh. Anyway, it's such a joy that you're joining me today. We have an exciting day. What are we making to do? We're making apple pie. Like me, I'm just so American. I'm about ready for Congress. Anyway, we're here today to make some lovely apple pie. I am so happy to be filling in for that other host who's going to be acting as my little kitchen elf, shall we say. Anyway, while she is cutting up our apples for our dish today, because, you know, I just got my nails done. Don't want that acid messing them up. We are going to go ahead and get started with our pie crust. Now, pie crust is deceptively a pain in the rear end, honey. It seems easy, but it's not. Look, so few ingredients. Yet, no one can do it right, honey. It is a pain in the rear end. I'll tell you what. So now, what we want to do is cut up 2 sticks of butter into chunks. I put them into that little old freezer, which I have already done. We have our chilled butter. It's nice and cold. Everything must be nice and cold. Colder and more unforgiving than Janine Pereiro's you know what on Halls, honey. I'm so getting deplatformed. Oh my God. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our flour. This is all-purpose flour, no bread flour, because in the land of making pie crusts, gluten is not your friend. We are not making bread. We do not want gluten. Okay, honey? So what we're going to do is we have some salt, half teaspoon of salt, half a tablespoon of white granulated sugar, and a little bit of flour left over for flouring our surfaces later on. So we're going to take our handy dandy sifter here, and we're going to start combining. Put in some flour and give it a sift, and do the same for our salt and our sugar. And give it a sift, and finish up with the rest of our flour. I said the rest of our flour. And give that a little sift. Yeah. Hey. There we go. Lovely. Now I took one of my best forks. I'm making such a sacrifice for you people here today. And I bent the tines up like that because what we're going to do is start off mixing our nice cold butter and our flour. And traditionally, people who make pie crust a lot, I know in my well-appointed kitchen, which this is not, I have a very handy little device that will do this for me. But in this kitchen, I had to, I had to do this to one of my forks. It's called a pastry cutter. All you do is you take it and you press it in, and it cuts the little pieces of butter up and mixes it in with your flour. So we're gonna have to improvise today and do our best here. So we're gonna start mixing this in, just smushing all this together. Make sure you clean off your fork tines. You're gonna have to give it a little bit of elbow grease, if you catch my meaning. Now what we want to do is break up those large chunks of butter into something a little bit more manageable for ourselves. And then we will go in with our fingers to break down the small pieces of butter that our mangled poor fork is not able to get. Lord, how did anybody live like this? Oof. Uncomfortable. This is going to take a while, so you best get comfortable. Okay, I think we're good to stick our little fingers in there. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, before we get too far, you need to put a cup and a half of water in a glass and stick it in the freezer. And we'll get to that in just a second. But for now, use your fingertips only. We're going to keep this cold. At all times, it must stay cold. Like Ted Cruz's marriage. Because if we introduce warmth into this, well, we might just ruin the flakiness of the crust. So, we're just going to use our little fingertips to mix things in. Alright. Now, I should mention before we go any further, I based this pie crust recipe off of one that I saw on Martha Stewart's channel. It's not quite the same, but it's close enough. And I need to mention this because we all know how Martha gets. And I do not want that woman coming after me with an ice pick again. Y'all, that was one crazy Yom Kippur, I'll tell you what. So, before we go any further, let me get that out of there. Alright. Now, as you can see, it looks like breadcrumbs or Parmesan cheese and I don't know, whatever you have in your kitchen that looks like this. So this is a good stopping place. I'm going to grab our ice water out of the fridge. When I say ice water, I mean water that is as cold as ice, not water that is made from ice. We just want very, very, very cold water. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just dump that in. And then put him back in. And this is where it will come together as a dough. Okay. Now, I should also mention that for this pie, we will only be needing one crust. Oh! Oof. But this recipe makes 2 crusts. So, what you want to do is go ahead and leave that second crust in the freezer. It's good for up to 3 months. So, pull it out when you're making Thanksgiving dinner. So, there's one less thing you have to do. Alright. Now, as you can see, we have a very nice dough form here. So what we're going to do is take some plastic wrap, or in this case, in this sad, sad kitchen, a plastic bag. We're going to divide this into 2 equal pieces. There we go. Almost. Then pat these down into a round. Make sure you get all of this off of your hands. And you don't want to work the dough too much, because like I said about our little friend gluten, we do not want him popping up in this. Thank you, ma'am. So do the bare minimum to put it together, and no more. Go ahead and slide that in there. And then use this to pick up all the little pieces. Make another round with this. And put it back into the bag. There we go. Now we're going to seal this up. Oh Lord, look at my manicure. Oh, I tell you what. And we're going to put this in the fridge for 60 minutes. Or overnight, depending on what your schedule is. Honey, I don't know your life. And we'll be back in 60 minutes, I suppose. Bye, y'all. We're back, y'all. It's been 60 minutes, give or take, you know, how this goes on the show. And we have our little round of dough here. And we are all ready to pull it out and get it all rolled up and put it in our pie crust. But first, before we do that, we need to talk about something called blind baking. No, it's not putting a handkerchief over your eyes and trying to figure out your way around the kitchen. Well, that would be fun. What blind baking is when you take a pie crust with your bottom crust and some weights, and you stick it all in that little oven and let it start to bake before you put your filling in. Now, this is especially so that we avoid what's known as the soggy bottom. In gents, no one likes a soggy bottom. Amen. So what we'll do is cook this at 400, well, with the crust in, We'll cook it at 400 for about 15 minutes until it's nice and weighted down so we know that it's not going to shrink. Then we're going to pull it out, take our weights out, put our fillet in, and finish up the pie. And pop it back in there, let it finish cooking, and we'll be good to go. So, that out of the way, we can go ahead and get to rolling. So now what you want to do is make sure you have a little bit of flour and a flat surface with which to roll it on. You don't want to over flour it because you don't want it to get dry, especially since it's so nice and moist. And we're going to take our, Lord, what is this? He's trying to pass off some broken ass old rolling pin. Ugh, this kitchen. I swear to God. Alright, let's get started. Now, the butter is going to be very cold. So it's going to take a bit to get to the point where you can really push it out. And that's fine. Now, I take it y'all have not talked about proper rolling pin procedure on this show because, my goodness, why would you have? This girl is a mess. So what you want to do with your rolling pin, start in the middle of the dough, roll out, roll back, roll back, roll in. And then you want to turn about 1/8 of the way and repeat the process. All the way around till you have a nice big flat sheet. You don't want to just roll it out in one direction because, honey, that will be a mess. And slide it around there. Ooh. That's not going to be very delicious, is it? Woo. Go. And it'll start to take shape. And if you made your dough right, you should have a little bit of elasticity in it and not break apart when you stretch it out. Now this was an oddly shaped ball. Where's mine? So we're going to just try to reform it a little bit. Get it a little bit in a better shape here. Get a bit extra flour. Well, try getting it on the dough this time. There we go. And let's take our plate, measure it. Well, that'll work. Before we do that, we want to take our butter. Oh, Pauline going. Give it a good rub down. Because, well, that doesn't like a good rub down the butter. Alright, now what we can do is very carefully peel this off the table because I did not put enough flour down. it came out in a little bit of a weird shape, but that's fine. It's dough. We can work with it. You can pull off some of these if you want. Fill in some of these gaps. There we go. What we're going to do for this larger stuff, fold it down. Go. And it's a good thing about dough, it sticks together. So if you mess up, just stick something else in there and it'll work. Alright. Gonna push these under. Try to even it out a little bit. And there we go. Alright, not so bad. I'm going to make sure that it is pressed in on the sides also. And the weights will help with that, of course. Now, before we put our beans in our pie, cannot believe I just uttered those sentences. Before we add our beans, there is another technique I would like to talk about. Now, some people, when they do blind baking, what they'll do is give across a bunch of little pricks, smaller than my little prick, of course, all over the pie to let the steam out. But sometimes that can have bad consequences, because as you can see, with this ugly ass pie crust I made yesterday, it will shrink. So if you put the weights in, it helps it from shrinking down into your plate and making it ugly. So what we want to do is flute the edges, just so. Give it a little pinch. Or you can take your fork and do that. Whatever is up to you. I like a little fancier though. You can probably tell. Now, I know a lot of apple pies out there have two crusts on them, one on the bottom and one on the top. But honey, that is just so boring. That's something Sue would come up with. Oh, look at me, I'm so boring. Ugh. All I wear is black. I'm going to put a pie crust on top of another pie crust. Ugh. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this pie and make it something a little bit more interesting so that it stands out a little bit more. So, before we do that, we need to go to our parchment paper. Make sure you have a piece big enough to go in the whole pie. You do not want any beans stuck in your crust, or any other kind of weights for that matter. You also don't want this to light on fire. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to use just some kidney beans. These are just dry kidney beans. Don't get the ones out of the can. My God. We do not want bean pie. Thank you. Dry kidney beans, pushing up to the edges. There we go. Now, you can also buy pie weights. If you make pies a lot and you don't want a bunch of ugly ass beans sitting in your kitchen, it might be something good to get. You can also use rice. Of course, there was a time not so very long ago when I did try to use rice in my pie, and somehow during the baking process it managed to get its way underneath the parchment paper, and I had rice lodged in my pie crust. And you know, the only thing worse than rice pie, you know, that kind of pie. So anyway, let's get on with this bacon. This is going to take about 15 minutes or so. You can take the beans out, cook another 5 minutes if you want. That's fine. But we'll see you back then. Bye-bye. Alright, y'all, we're back. Now, our pie crust is going to look nice and golden brown, so it should be about done. So we're going to go ahead and pull it right out. Without destroying the oven, of course. Alright. That is quite lovely, if I do say so myself. Which I just did. So, I'm going to go ahead and carefully pull this up by the extra parchment that we left. And voila. That should be okay. That's going to just set aside and cool a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and get started on our filling. Well, as you can see, my little kitchen elf was very thorough in cutting up our apples for us. So, the first thing that you want to do, anytime you have some bald apples, is add a little lemon juice. The lemon, and this is for anything, not just apple pie, but the lemon will help prevent further oxidization, which is to say in layman's terms, they're going to go brown and gross looking. And give that a quick stir. Now, as you can see, hopefully, these are cut up into nice thin little slices that'll help us with layering it in our crust. So next what we want to do is add about a half a cup. Oh, bless me, I jumping the gun here. You want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 before you do anything else. And then you're going to, this is about half a cup of brown sugar. You're going to go ahead and toss that in. And this is, I ran out of glasses in the silly kitchen. Can you believe it? Of course I did. So, this is a tablespoon of ground ginger and a half a tablespoon of cinnamon and allspice. That is our spice mixture for our apple pie. We ain't using any of that pre-bottled stuff. No, sir. Thank you very much. So, we already put our lemon juice in. It's just a few squirts, enough to cover the apples. And I should mention that I'm using Granny Smith apples. I think I forgot to mention that at the start of this little show. I'm using Granny Smith apples because they are nice and sour, and you have nowhere to go but up on the sweetness, and it takes a lot to over-sweeten it. Plus, they're very, very fibrous. So they will not break down and get soggy very easily. Now, this is about 3 or 4, maybe 5 if you're making a big pan and you have some scrawny little apples. But that should suit just fine. And as far as sogginess goes, well, we already talked about our nasty soggy bottom, which, thanks to our blind baking, we have very successfully avoided. But we don't want our filling to get all nasty and goopy either, because nobody wants a goopy ass apple pie that you have to eat in a bowl. Now, it is nice to eat in a bowl with some milk, if you're poor like my mama's family did. I enjoy it once in a while, but you don't want to have to. It should be optional. So what we're going to do is take some uncooked tapioca and spread a nice thin layer down at the bottom of our pie shell. Now what the tapioca is going to do is it doesn't have much flavor by itself, but it'll soak up all them extra juices that are going to come out of the apples and help keep our pie from getting to be a big soggy mess, because nobody wants that, let me tell you what. Okay, so now we can start layering our apples in here. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's not going to be, because they're apples. Not exactly a uniform shape, you know. Just want to make sure that there ain't no holes and there ain't no clumps. We'll make it as even a layer as you can. Because we all want that little old pie to cook evenly. You hear? So we're going to go ahead and put another thin layer of tapioca on. And start with our second layer of apples. Could have thrown an extra apple in there. My lord. You all have some scrawny apples up here. Okay. And then our last layer of tapioca. This doesn't have to be as thick as the others because it's on top. I'm going to wash my hands. Goopify myself. And then we can start on our extra fun surprise topping. Now, like I said earlier, I do not like too much crust in men or my pies. So what I like to do with my apple pies is make myself a Dutch apple pie. Now, what a Dutch apple pie is where you take a normal apple pie, but then you add some fun crunch to the top. It's more fun than the Dutch have ever been, honey. Trust me. So what we're going to do is take a half a stick of unsalted butter, let it out to warm a little bit. And we're going to take 2 cups of old-fashioned oats, uncooked. Just a little dollop of salt there. Let's see, what is this? About a teaspoon of cinnamon. Even though, again, we have cinnamon in our apples, but we want a little bit of flavor in here. And about another half a cup of brown sugar, just to sweeten it up some. And then, just like when we was making the crust, you just want to mix it all in there. Break down that butter. You could actually even put more butter in. You could put a whole stick of butter in, honey, if you want. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. Those canines next door are misery. I tell you, pure misery. Oh Lord, I don't know how she stands it. No wonder she's having something. Alright, now I got this all nice and mixed up. We're just gonna put a nice thick layer over top there. just so you know, you have any left over. It's pretty fun to eat by itself. Don't let my hips hear me say that. Hold on! There we go. Alright, give it a quick pat down. Now, we're going to go ahead and cook this in our preheated, hopefully preheated oven at 350 for another 45 minutes. And you're going to want to stop and check it every 15 minutes or so, because you don't want this beautiful golden pie crust that we made to start browning. If it does, well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you a little tip to that about halfway through cooking. So we'll see you then. Okay? We'll see ya. Alright, we are back. It's been about 20 minutes. Normally I would wait to do this for about 30 to 35 minutes. But if you're looking at your pie, and you're going to want to come and check it at this point. But if you're looking at your pie, your little old pie, and it's getting a little dark around the crust, what we can do is just a quick trick with a little bit of aluminum foil, a lickety split, and you'll be back on cooking duty in no time. So let's grab our pie out. Carefully. There we go. Now it's cooked about 20 to 25 minutes. As you can see, our crust is looking very nice. I normally wouldn't do this early, but given that I am on camera when I'm making this, I'm going to do it just for demonstration purposes. Now, we're going to take a little bit of foil, just like that, and scrunch it up very carefully just around the crust. Now, that'll shield the heat from browning this up too much while the rest of the pie bakes. Woo! Strong. Alright. It might be a little fiddly, that's fine. It might be a lot fiddly, that's fine. Make sure you don't press too hard, getting it to stick down there, because you don't want to mush up this lovely crust we've got. Yeah, and that is all. If it stays, oh, Lord help me. Oh my God, stay on. Well, you get the idea. Now you're going to go ahead and put this back in the oven for the rest of its cooking time, and I will see you in whatever that is. Oh, bye. Okay, y'all, we're back. It's been about 45 minutes, and I probably should have been nice and cooked, so we're going to go grab it out of that little old oven. Would you look at that? Well, isn't that just a picture perfect little pie we made? I do say so myself. And it smells good, and it's going to taste even better, honey. Now, that wasn't so hard, was it? Huh? I do not think so. And that's about all we have time for the show today. So thank y'all for joining me. It was a pleasure, and I'll be here next episode too. And then we don't know what's going to happen after that. I might be back more often. She doesn't know anything. So, thank y'all for joining me here. The Kiki Toblerone Show. Kitchen Witchin'. Should be making that gesture. I'm a lady. In some states. Well, okay. Thank you for joining me with Kitchen Witchin', coming to you from just a sad little kitchen the ugliest in America, whatever you want to say. My name has been Kiki Toblerone, and it has been a treasure, child. I'll tell you what. And we'll see you next time.